Picture this. A man comes galloping into a town square on a horse, riding so incredibly fast that the bystanders are just completely shocked. Somebody yells out to him, "Hey, where are you going?" And the man yells back, "I don't know, ask the horse." It's an old Zen story, but honestly ask yourself, isn't this exactly what our modern lives feel like? Our untamed, chaotic minds are the galloping horse, and we are just holding on for dear life, letting our thoughts drag us wherever they please.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're exploring a seriously comprehensive guide to mind management, based on the teachings of Pravrajika Divyananda Prana. We're going to look at how ancient yogic wisdom from texts like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras might actually hold the key to modern neuroscience, and how we can learn to literally rewire our brains. Here's our roadmap for today: the runaway mind, the organized mind, the power of breath, rewiring your subconscious, and finally, your brain on meditation. Okay, let's dive into this.
Section 1. The Runaway Mind. Understanding the Chaos.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the stark contrast between these two distinct mental states. First, think about the unorganized mind. This is characterized by really poor awareness and a continuous, uncontrolled flow of thoughts. And let's be real, they're usually negative ones. You aren't consciously thinking. Thinking is just aggressively happening to you. And because this mind totally lacks focus, it's constantly craving distraction. On the flip side, we have our goal, the organized mind. This mind features deep focus and, surprisingly, very few thoughts. Because it is highly aware and engaged, it doesn't need constant external entertainment. It naturally generates its own happiness and flow.
Let's look a little closer at that unorganized mind, because there's a brilliant analogy for this. Think about a room in your house that is just totally overcluttered. You don't want to spend any time in it, right? You escape to the living room or the guest room. Well, when our minds are cluttered with negative, runaway thoughts, we don't want to be in them either. It leads to intense boredom and frustration. But here's the catch. You can't just walk out of your own mind. So what do? We are forced to constantly seek external entertainment, like instinctively reaching for our mobile phones the absolute second we feel a hint of silence, just so we don't go crazy.
Section 2. The power of breath. Breath and the mind. 15 to 16. That's the number of times the average person breathes in a single minute. But here's where it gets super interesting. The source material points out that your breath and your mind are actually two expressions of the exact same vital energy. So when your mind is highly agitated, stressed out, or filled with runaway thoughts, that breathing rate physically spikes, often hitting around 20 breaths per minute.
Now contrast that with 8 to 9. This is the typical breathing rate per minute of someone in an optimal meditative state. Because your breath and your mind are so inherently linked, the first and most immediate step to calming your mind is to manually calm your breathing. By deliberately bringing your respiratory rate down, you literally physically dissolve that mental restlessness. It's like you're cutting off the physiological fuel for those runaway thoughts.
Section 3. Rewiring your subconscious. Organizing the mind.
And this brilliantly illustrates our systematic toolkit, derived directly from ancient texts like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It is a very precise 4-step sequence. Step 1, as we just discussed, is regulating your breath. Step 2 involves a bit of control over your everyday behavior and speech, basically living a bit more intentionally so you aren't stirring up unnecessary mental chaos. Step 3 is watching your thoughts. This is also known as metacognition. It means observing your thinking objectively without getting swept away by it. And finally, step 4 is cognitive reframing. Once you can actually observe your thoughts, you can actively pull out the negative ones and replace them with positive ones, essentially reprogramming your subconscious from the inside out. I absolutely love this visual metaphor from the source. The mind is like white linen. Whatever you dip it into, it will take that color. Think about it. Our thoughts are primarily created by two things: our sensory exposures, meaning what we watch, what we read and listen to, and the unfolding of our own memories. If you are constantly exposing yourself to negativity, your mind is literally being dyed with that negativity. To reorganize the mind, we have to consciously choose what we are dipping our mental linen into every single day. Which brings us to Section 4, Your Brain on Meditation, Biological Reality. We're not just talking about philosophy here. There is hard data gathered from extensive research, including workshops at IIT Delhi and studies over in the US, showing the real-world biological effects of meditation. We see enhanced mental homeostasis, which is just a fancy term for inner balance, and heightened emotional intelligence. Physically, brain scans show increased gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which governs our highest cognitive functions. And crucially,
It accelerates neuroplasticity. There's a great point made here. Meditation is not about falling asleep. In fact, if you're falling asleep, you're doing it wrong. It's about deepening your awareness so intensely that you are physically rewiring the neural pathways in your brain through positive conscious thought.
To really drive this home, there's a fascinating anecdote about an MRI scan conducted on a Tibetan monk at a New York State University. Now, this monk was a highly experienced deep meditator. When he was hooked up to the scanners, the researchers simply asked him to introduce a single thought of loving kindness. Instantly, his entire prefrontal cortex ignited on the scan. It lit up so brightly that scientists jokingly declared him the happiest guy on Earth. It just proves that a single, focused, positive thought backed by profound awareness literally changes your biology. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how our brainwaves function. Most of us operate in beta when we're problem solving, or alpha when we're just relaxing. Delta, that's deep sleep. But what the scans reveal about deep meditators is that they exhibit high-level gamma radiation. Gamma waves are associated with massive, heightened awareness. This is absolute physical proof that these practices aren't just subjective, fuzzy feelings. Controlling your mind physically restructures the electrical output of your brain waves.
So, we've covered the runaway mind, the power of breath to slow it down, the steps to rewire your cognitive habits, and the incredible biological reality of an organized mind. The source text leaves us with a really powerful truth. With your mind, you can make a heaven out of hell and a hell out of heaven. Nothing else is required. The actual heaven and hell aren't needed. Your own mind can do it all. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. If you have that much power, what will you build today? Grab the reins of that horse and start directing your own life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this helps you build a more organized, powerful mind.